Hey, it's me, Jenny Lee. I'm here with the next Raw discussion video. We're on session 48, which makes this video number 49, and it takes place on April 22nd, 1981, which is a very important date for me because my BFF as a child was born on April 22nd. And my daughter, my littlest daughter's birthday was April 22nd, and they have a huge connection because this is a little personal tidbit of information here before I get started, and it's important for me to say it out loud because you'll find out in a second. They had the same birthday, my BFF as a child and my littlest child, but my BFF as a child, she passed away from a very terrible genetic disease the same year that my daughter was born. So one life went out and one life came in. And I had a dream about her last night that I was just really remembering as I was seeing the date. So this is very significant. And yeah, I had a dream about her last night. So I don't know what that means, but I just had to say it out loud. So let's get started on this video. Okay, see, it's April 22nd. All right, could you tell me of the instrument's condition and if she is improving with time? Poor Carla. This instrument's vital energies are improving with time as you measure it. The instrument's physical energies are less than your previous asking. Goodness gracious. So she's getting better, but she still doesn't have as much energy as she should. I have a question from the instrument that I will read. So this is Carla. I hate that she has to be called the instrument. Like, come on, Ra. Could we just call her by her name? Like, really? Jeez. Anyway. Carla wants to know, you have suggested several times that sexual energy transfers aid the instrument's vital energy and this contact. It seems that this is not true for all people, that the sexual circuitry and the spiritual circuitry are not the same. Is this instrument an anomaly, or is the positive effect of sexual activity on spiritual energy normal for all third density beings? I already know the answer to this question, not because I've read the question, not because I've already read it, but I just know. Personally, anyway, we won't get into all that. This instrument, though not anomalous, is somewhat less distorted towards the separation of mind, body, and spirit than many of your third density entities. The energies of sexual transfer would, if run through the undeveloped spiritual, electrical, or magnetic complex, which you call circuitry, effectually blow out that particular circuit. That's a nice visual. Contrarily, the full spiritual energies run through bodily complex circuitry will also adversely affect the undeveloped circuit of the bodily complex. So the full spiritual energy pretty much would just blow out anything if they're not balanced and developed enough. That makes sense. Some there are, such as this instrument, who have not, in the particular incarnation, chosen at this time to express sexual energy through the bodily circuitry. Thus, from the beginning of such an entity's experience, the body and spirit express together in any sexual action. What? Let's read that sentence again. Thus, from the beginning of such an entity's experience, the body and spirit express together in any sexual action. Therefore, to transfer sexual energy for this instrument is to transfer spiritually as well as physically. This instrument's magnetic field, if scrutinized by one sensitive, would show these unusual configurations. Notice that I wrote the word whoa. So in other words, it is kind of unusual for Carla to be able to transfer the spiritual energy sexually. And I think that they've kind of brought that up before, that there's some amazing, wonderful spiritual things that can happen with these sexual energy transfers. But both of the people that are participating in these said sexual energy transfers have to be at a level that they're working with their throat and third eye chakras, and that they're open, and that kind of, I mean, I guess it could happen without them realizing it. But to me, it kind of seems like they have to have some sort of awareness that that's even a possibility, that they're working with these particular energy centers, and that's what their intention is that they're trying to connect to intelligent infinity through the sexual act using those energy centers. And I could be completely wrong. Like, maybe it can just happen spontaneously if both of the people are, at that level. But personally, I feel like the majority of people are at some way lower level when it comes to sexual things. And it's just like this bodily thing that we do that can be a beautiful thing, but a lot of times is not. There's a lot of awful, horrible things that happen with sexual energy transfers that cause more problems than they're worth. But that's not true for everybody. But there's a lot of it. So I do think that Carla has unusual configurations when it comes to this. But they had mentioned before that she is such a loving person, and that she wants to give that love to others so readily, and she can do it so easily, that's why the sexual energy transfer for her builds her spiritual mojo. It gives her this spiritual energy because it's just the way that she is. So, good job, Carla. Okay, this is not unique to one entity, but is common to a reasonable number of entities who have lost their desire for orange and green ray, which is actually supposed to be yellow ray, sexual experiences. So they've lost the desire for it to be just about the physical, or the unfortunate sense of control over somebody else, or being controlled by somebody else, and have strengthened the combined circuitry of spirit, mind, and body to express the totality of beingness in each action. It is for this reason also that the social intercourse and companionship is very beneficial to this instrument, it being sensitive to the more subtle energy transfers. So even just her being with other people, not in a sexual way, helps her with her spiritual energies. If you, Ra, as an individualized entity, were incarnate on Earth now, with full awareness and memory of what you know now, what would your objective at this time on Earth as far as activities are concerned? What an excellent question, Dawn. Ooh, let's see what the answer is. The query suggests that which has been learned to be impractical. However, were we to again be naive enough to think that our physical presence was any more effective than the light and love we send your people and the treasure of this contact, we would do as we did do. We would be and would offer ourselves as teach learners. So essentially they're saying, we're not going to do that stupid shit again, because look how awful it turned out. And now we're stuck here with you assholes forever trying to fix the shit that we messed up. Sorry, I cussed a lot in there. But And they don't feel like they need to do that anymore. But they are saying if they did, they would just do the same thing again. They would try to help us learn, and they would also be learning from us. Knowing what you know now about our planetary condition and methods of communication, if you yourself as an individual had gone through the process of incarnation here as a wanderer and now have memory of a sufficient way to have the objective that you just stated, what mechanisms would you seek out for the process of learned teaching in our present state of communication? That question was a little complicated. So they're asking if they had come back as a wanderer instead of like incarnating just in a body with their full knowledge, and they remembered stuff. What mechanisms would you seek out for the process of learned teaching in our present state of communication? My brother, we perceive you have made certain unspoken connections. We acknowledge these, and for this reason cannot infringe upon your confusion. I was afraid of that. So, remember, in a previous session, not that long ago, Ra told them that one of them, I think, at least one of them, if not two of them, was a wanderer, and I think maybe one of them is a wanderer from the Ra group people. So Don's trying to ask about it without asking about it, and Ra's like, no sir, we cannot infringe upon your free will and confusion. I love it. Okay, Don continues. My lecture yesterday. The lecture was titled The Spiritual Significance of UFOs, given at Jefferson Community College on April 21st, 1981. A transcript of the lecture can be found in the speeches section of the llresearch.org. Okay. It was attended by only a few. Aw, poor Don. If this had occurred during a UFO flap, as we call them, many more would have attended. But since Orion entities cause the flaps primarily, what is Orion's reward, shall I say, for visibility, in that they actually generate greater chances and opportunities of dissemination of information such as mine at this time? We got that? We got the question. Okay, so this assumption is incorrect. The flaps cause many fears among your people, many speakings, understandings concerning plots, cover-ups, mutilations, killing, and other negative impressions. Even those supposedly positive reports which gain public awareness speak of doom. You may understand yourself as one who will be in the minority due to the understandings which you wish to share, if you may use that misnomer. We perceive there is a further point we may posit at this time. The audience brought about by Orion-type publicity is not seated by seniority of vibration to a great extent. The audiences receiving learned teaching without stimulus from publicity will be greatly oriented toward illumination. Therefore, forget you the counting. Good God Almighty. I got the first part of this paragraph. Okay, so let's recap here. This section, this part. Don's saying he wanted to do a lecture about how UFOs are actually spiritual. There's a connection to the spiritual, and maybe that it shouldn't be all doom and gloom, that this is, there's more to it than what we're thinking about. And doesn't the Orion group realize that we can be making this something positive and perhaps going against what they want to be accomplishing with their doom and gloom and controlling factors, right? Right. Okay. So Ra's saying no. No, Don. You're definitely in the minority. There are very few people that think that UFOs that could even fathom them being a positive thing. But there's way more people that see them as doom and gloom, and they have to be something awful that we have to like rally against, which is still that way. Here we are 41 years later, and we still feel, majority of people still feel that way. There can't be anything good about, these encounters. And there's a lot of reasons for people to feel that way when it comes to all the abduction stories. Those are terrifying. Now, this last paragraph was a little bit confusing, and I got the first part of it. So, we perceive there is a further point. The audience brought about by Orion-type publicity is not seeded by seniority of vibration to a great extent. Sorry, folks. Ra is saying that a lot of the people that cling on to the doom and gloom publicity that the Orion type of encounters generate, they haven't evolved very much spiritually. And we already know from very past session that more than 50% of our human population is what is called the spiritual children, who have not evolved into the higher sub-levels of our third dimensional existence. So Ra's saying that a lot of the people that get tied up in this doom and gloomness of the whole UFO experience are people that are probably in the spiritual children category. But then this sentence was really confusing. The audience is receiving learn teaching without... Okay, I got it now. The audience is receiving learn teaching without stimulus from publicity will be greatly oriented towards illumination. So people that are learning about the UFOs not from the doom and gloom perspective are of the group of people that will see it, that will have the possibility and the potential to see it as something illuminating and not as doom and gloom. But then this last sentence, what the hell does this mean? Therefore, forget you the counting. Are they talking about the counting of like the calling? I don't know what that means. Okay, anyway, Don's moving on. He says, thank you, that cleared it up very well. A very important point. Can you tell me how positive and negative polarizations in fourth and fifth density are used to cause work in consciousness? There is very little work in consciousness in fourth and fifth densities compared to the work done in third. The work that is accomplished in positive fourth is the work whereby the positive social memory complex, having through slow stages harmoniously integrated itself, goes forth to aid those of less positive orientation which seek their aid. Thus, their service is their work, so helping others. And through this dynamic between the societal self and the other self, which is the object of love, greater and greater intensities of understanding or compassion are attained. The intensity continues until the appropriate intensity of light may be welcomed. This is fourth density harvest. So, greater and greater intensities of understanding or compassion until they're ready to move up to fifth. Within fourth density positive, there are minor amounts of catalyst of spiritual and mental complex distortion. This occurs during the process of harmonizing to the extent of forming the social memory complex. This causes some small catalyst and work to occur, but the great work of fourth density lies in the contact betwixt, that's a fun word, betwixt the societal self and the less polarized other self. So them working together as a group to help others that aren't yet. In fourth density negative, much work is accomplished during the fighting for position which precedes the period of the social memory complex. There are opportunities to polarize negatively by control of other selves. During the social memory complex of fourth density negative, the situation is the same. The work takes place through the societal reaching out to less polarized other self in order to aid in negative polarization. In fifth density positive and negative, the concept of work done through a potential difference is not particularly helpful, as fifth density entities are again intensifying rather than potentiating. In positive, the fifth density complex uses sixth density teach learners to study the more illuminated understandings of unity, thus becoming more and more wise. Fifth density positive social memory complexes often will choose to divide their services to others in two ways. First, the beaming of light to creation. Second, the sending of groups to be of aid as instruments of light, as those whom you're familiar with through channels. All right, there's a lot of stuff here. So what exactly are we going over here? So fourth density catalyst really just comes about when they're getting their stuff together. They're starting to work together as a societal group. After that, they're just trying to love, 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 love until they reach some sort of higher understanding of compassion, and then they get to move up to fifth density. And the fourth density negative is fighting, fighting, fighting. That's their catalyst until all of the positions are won, and then they're just trying to help other people become assholes. And then in the fifth density, this was interesting. They work with sixth density, probably, openly, not like us, where we're having to do it like secretively in some weird way that we don't understand. They're just openly working with sixth density entities to either use light for creation, which is really cool. What are they making? Or sending aid, sending groups to be of aid as instruments of light, such as those whom you're familiar with through channeling. So groups that are going to be instruments of light to be of assistance in a positive way. Let's continue. In fifth density negative, service to self has become extremely intense, and the self has shrunk or compacted so that the dialogues with the teach learners are used exclusively. Sorry. Oh, I'm trying to pull my sleeve up. Sorry about that. I probably just gave somebody motion sickness. In fifth density negative, service to self has become extremely intense, and the self has shrunk or compacted so that the dialogues with the teach learners are used exclusively in order to intensify wisdom. There are very, very few fifth density negative wanderers, for they fear the forgetting. And there are very, very few fifth density Orion members, for they do not any longer perceive any virtue in other selves. Oh, wow. It is unclear and the subject to interpretation, but this information about the number of fifth density entities comprising the Orion group may contradict information given in 715. Sometimes there's contradictory information in all of this raw stuff. Okay, I would like to take as an example an entity at birth who is roughly high on the seniority list for positive polarization and possible harvestability at the end of this cycle, and follow a full cycle of his experience starting before his incarnation, which body is activated, process of becoming incarnate, the activation of the third density physical body process as the body moves through this density and is acted upon by catalyst, and then the process of death and the activation of various bodies so that we may make a full circuit from a point prior to incarnation back around through incarnation and death and back to that position. What might you say? In one cycle of incarnation in this density, could you do that for me? Whew. That was a lot of words done. Okay. Your query is most distorted, for it assumes that creations are alike. Each mind-body-spirit complex has its own patterns of activation and its own rhythms of awakening. The important thing for harvest is the harmonious balance between the various energy centers of the mind-body-spirit complex. This is to be noted of a relative import. We grasp the thrust of your query and will make a most general answer, stressing the unimportance of such arbitrary generalizations. Yikes. The entity before incarnation dwells in the appropriate place and time space. The true color type of this location will be dependent upon the entity's needs. Those entities, being wanderers, have the green, blue, or indigo true color core of mind-body-spirit complex will have rested therein. So each entity is going to dwell where it needs to dwell based on its kind of level of where it's made it so far. Entrance into incarnation requires the investment or activation of the indigo ray or etheric body, for this is the form maker. The young or small physical mind body spirit complex, babies, has the 7 energy ray has the 7 energy centers potentiated before the birthing process. There are also analogs in time-space of these energy centers corresponding to the 7 energy centers in each of the 7 true color densities. Okay. Thus, in the microcosm exists all the experience that is prepared. It is as though the infant contains the universe. How beautiful is that? They have all the potential of all the 7 energy rays, energy centers, and it's all connected to the universe. Oh, how lovely. Okay, the patterns of activation of an entity of high seniority will undoubtedly move with some rapidity to the green ray level, which is the springboard to primary blue. There is always some difficulty in penetrating blue primary energy, for it requires that which your people have in great paucity, that is honesty. Blue ray is the ray of free communication with self and other self. What are you saying, Ra? They were all a bunch of liars. That which your people have in great paucity. Now, I don't know what that word means, and I probably should have looked it up. But I understand what Ra is saying. And really, he's not like saying that we're all a bunch of liars. He's saying that we all have a really hard time speaking our truth, because there's so much expected of us through all the different channels of our cultures and religions and etc., 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 that we feel like we have to hide things, we have to keep things from each other, we have to tell little white lies about things because we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, etc., etc., etc. There's so many things that keep us from speaking freely and speaking our truth and speaking from the heart, that this is absolutely true. Blue ray is the ray of free communication with self and other self, without all that other garbage attached to it. That's really hard in the kind of world that we live in. Having accepted that a harvestable or nearly harvestable entity will be working from the green ray springboard, one may then posit that the experiences and the remainder of the incarnation will be focused upon activation of the primary blue ray of freely given communication, of indigo ray, that of freely shared intelligent energy, and if possible, moving through the gateway, the penetration of the violet ray and intelligent infinity. This may be seen to be manifested by a sense of consecrate or hallowed nature of everyday creations and activities. So, being able to speak freely, sharing intelligent energy, penetrating the intelligent infinity, and this may be seen to be manifested by a sense of consecrate or hallowed nature of everyday creations and activities. Everyday creations and activities being somehow of a spiritual, important nature. How interesting is that? Upon the bodily complex death, as you call this transition, the entity will immediately, upon realization of its state, return to the indigo form maker body and rest therein until the proper future placement is made. Here we have the anomaly of harvest. In harvest, the entity will then transfer its indigo body into violet ray manifestation as seen in true color yellow. This is for the purpose of gauging the harvestability of the entity. After this anomalous activity has been carefully completed, the entity will move into indigo body again and be placed in the correct true color locus in space, time, and time-space, at which time the healings and learned teachings necessary shall be completed and further incarnation needs determined. So they're going into a state of the form maker state. Then they go back to yellow to basically have their souls weighed. Then they get put back in the indigo body and placed with their true color so that they can do all of their healing and learning about the incarnation that they just went through. And then they can decide after that if they're going to be incarnated again. Which, remember, the lower sublevels, there's no personal decision. They just go back. But the higher sublevels, you get to decide whether you're going to come back or not, and you can kind of decide what it is that you want to learn in the next life and who you're going to learn it with. Who supervises the determination of further incarnation needs and sets up the seniority list for incarnation? This is a query with two answers. Firstly, there are those directly under the guardians who are responsible for the incarnation patterns of those incarnating automatically, without conscious self-awareness of the process of spiritual evolution. You may call these beings angelic if you prefer. They are local and of your planetary sphere. So that's what I was just talking about. So there are the lower level, third density spirits that when they're not ready to be self-aware of the evolution of the incarnating process, they just incarnate automatically. They go, their physical body dies, they go out, they spend some time doing whatever they need to do, and then they just come right back. And that is supervised by angels that are local and of our planetary sphere. The angels are of our space, of our Earth, of our galaxy, probably. I don't know the exact local. It does say planetary sphere, so that is Earth. The angels are of our Earth. How lovely. And they're helping shoot people back in. Hey, you don't know a whole lot about this, but here's some things to learn, and now get your ass back to Earth. Thanks, angels. The seniority of vibration is to be likened unto placing various grades of liquids in the same glass. Some will rise to the top, and others will sink to the bottom. Layers and layers of entities will ensue. A harvest draws near. As harvest draws near, those filled with the most light and love will naturally and without supervision be in line for the experience of incarnation. How interesting. So the more you're filled with light and love, which kind of throws out the whole negative service to self people, because, I guess they have love for themselves, right? So never mind. They're going to rise to the top. And the people who haven't made it there yet will be hanging out longer, waiting for another incarnation. When the entity becomes aware in its mind-body-spirit complex totality of the mechanism for spiritual evolution, it itself will arrange and place those lessons and entities necessary for maximum growth and expression of polarity in the incarnative experience before the forgetting process occurs. So people that have made it to the upper levels of the third density get to choose their own life with their own lessons, with their own people that they come in contact with for maximum growth and polarity in the way that they want it to happen before they forget. But here's the disadvantage. The only disadvantage of this total free will of those senior entities choosing the manner of the incarnation experiences is that some entities attempt to learn so much during one incarnative experience that the intensity of catalyst disarranges the polarized entity, and the experience thus is not maximally used as intended. Well, that hits home with me. Trying to learn too much shit in one lifetime, and then it just screws it all up. Yeah, I feel like I've done that before. Maybe a little bit in this life too. An analogy would be a student entering college and signing up for more courses than he could possibly assimilate in a time. Is that correct? Correct. Trying to learn too much at once. How the various bodies read through violet are linked to the energy centers read through violet. Are they linked in some way? That's a weird question, Dawn. As we noted, each of the true color densities has the 7 energy centers, and each entity contains all this in potentiation. We all have it. We all have it there. It's all potential. The activation while in yellow ray or violet ray intelligent infinity is a passport to the next octave of experience. So the yellow ray being our physicalness here, right? I don't know, that got real complicated in the last session. There are adepts who have penetrated many of the energy centers and several of the true colors. This may be done with utmost care while in the physical body, for as we noted when speaking of the dangers of linking red, orange, yellow circuitry with true color blue circuitry, the potential for disarrangement in the mind-body-spirit complex is great. However, the entity who penetrates intelligent infinity is basically capable of walking the universe with unfettered tread. Wow. But don't skip over the heart, people. Don't just take your physical human earth existence straight to the blue. You gotta stop at the heart and work on that. Okay. All right. Then the last question they always ask is, what can we do to help Carla? This instrument is weak physically, and continued work times will lengthen this weakness. This continued contact also aids in the continued climb in vital energy for the instrument, as well as the integration and vital energy of the group as a unit. The choice is yours. What? They basically just said, doing this weakens her and gives her energy. But free will, people, free will. Okay, let's review what we learned in this session. This was a very interesting session with a lot of really cool, important stuff. So it starts out talking about the sexual energy transfers and how Carla is kind of in the minority. And then it goes on to asking Ra if what would happen if they decided to come back, knowing as incarnate on Earth, and they're like, we ain't doing that shit again. And then and then asking if they would become a wanderer. But really, Dawn's trying to ask, like, what would you do if you were one of us? Because one of us is one of you. And they're like, we ain't telling you that. And then we get into the whole UFO thing again. And we're talking about the spiritual children being the ones sucked into the doom and gloom of the Orion type of UFO experiences. But the people that can learn about the UFOs from a different perspective will become illuminated about what it really is, and not necessarily just that they're going to kill us all. And then we went into talking about polarization and positive, negative, fourth and fifth densities, and there was a lot of information about the fourth density is really just having a lot of catalysts at the beginning when they're trying to get their stuff together, negative and positive. But in fifth density, they're working with sixth density teachers, which is kind of cool, I think. And once again, really, it's the positives are trying to help people, and the negatives are just trying to help themselves. And then we went into the incarnation and death process, which was really interesting. And Ra said it wasn't. This is arbitrary. Ra, it might be arbitrary, but it's really interesting to us, and really it does give us a lot of insight into what the hell all of this is and what it means. So we all get a chance to go and learn and understand the incarnation that we've had when we pass. But then we go into this kind of space where we have to wait until our next incarnation. And there's the seniority list, which I really like the analogy of the different liquids in the same glass, and the ones that have the most love and light go to the top, and they can come back with their own purposes and their own lessons. But don't try to do too much at once, people. It's only one lifetime, and these are very short. But others who aren't ready for that will just be ushered in with angels will usher them back. And don't forget, I think one of the most interesting parts of this that was funny and not funny at the same time was that humans are not good at speaking their truth. We're not good at free communication, and very few people will actually penetrate their blue ray energy. How sad. So there was a lot of really good information in this session. Hence, this one is much longer than the last ones that we have done. I hope that you have enjoyed this. Please don't forget to join in the discussion. Put your comments, questions, concerns, complaints down below. If you think I was way too harsh on people, you can yell at me. It's okay. There is a place to discuss this even further with other people that are also have read or are reading the Raw book in my Discord server. If you would like to join that, there's going to be a link down below in the description box. And don't forget to give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if this is the first Raw video discussion you have seen, you got to go back and watch them in order. Sorry, it's a lot. It's a lot to undertake, but if you feel connected to this information, it's more than worth it. And I do highly suggest reading these on your own too, if you have the time, energy, or, you know, you want. Anyway, thanks for watching this, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.